Midsummer noon, the sun beat down like a fiery hammer on the winding, patched road. The chirping of cicadas from ancient banyan trees by the village shrine echoed, blending with the sparse sounds of passing vehicles. Ha Village, a peaceful place for generations, known for its carpentry, had gradually grown busier thanks to the provincial road cutting through. People began erecting small shops, water stalls, and bike repair stops. Anyone with land bordering the road suddenly saw their lives transform. Spacious homes rose, children thrived, and properties facing the main road became as precious as gold. In this changing atmosphere, Mr. Toat stood out as a man of great ambition. Over 50, with a sturdy build and a perpetually calculating, somber expression, Mr. Toat had been known for his shrewdness since youth. Born into a modest family, he learned to borrow, trade, and seize opportunities, building his wealth from nothing. Now, he owned a 2-story house in an alley, a testament to his efforts. However, for Mr. Toat, much was never enough. He always set his sights on a grander goal, a piece of land facing the main road to open a large business. Opposite the road, next to newly built tiled houses of a few other families, lay a sizable empty plot. It belonged to Mr. Huang, a villager who worked far away and rarely returned. Mr. Huang was a coal miner in Quang Ninh, toiling year-round, only coming home for ancestral death anniversaries and Tet holidays. His parents had passed away early, leaving him this roadside land. He planned to sell it, add some money, and buy 3 adjoining plots to build a large multi-generational house when he retired, so his children could live together happily. Since he wasn't building yet, Mr. Huang had merely put up a makeshift fence and left it. Over time, wild grass grew tall, and buffaloes and cows roamed freely. Villagers remarked on the waste, saying it could generate huge profits if utilized. Mr. Toat himself had passed by numerous times, his heart burning with covetous desire, wanting to claim it for his own. One evening, Mr. Toat sat sipping wine with friends at a roadside stall. One man asked, "Heard your house is finally being built on the main road?" Mr. Toat exhaled smoke into the air, watching it quickly dissipate. He chuckled, "Well, I managed to save a little money to buy land on the main road, so my children and grandchildren will have a place to do business. Staying cooped up in the alley will never get ahead." Another man pointed to the empty plot in front of them and asked, "Is that your land there? That plot used to be so cheap, only 300 chiu, a historical currency unit, often used colloquially for a small amount of money back then. Now it's 2 or 3 billion dong Vietnamese currency for just one lot, isn't it?" Mr. Toat chuckled. "That's right, brother. Just 400 or 500 chiu then. Land truly is an asset that generates wealth. Luckily, my family bought it cheap back then. Now it's out of reach." Mr. Toat spoke, his eyes fixed on the overgrown, wild plot before him, looking like a silver sea under the long, shifting rays of the setting sun. He clicked his tongue, thinking to himself, "Abandoned land is like a cake lying on the street. The quick hand eats, the slow hand loses." From then on, he discussed it with his wife, Mrs. Toat. Mrs. Toat warned, "You're trying to swallow that land, aren't you? Be careful, you might choke." Mr. Toat, flushed from wine, retorted, "If I don't swallow it, someone else will. They left it abandoned for grass to grow, not to build a house. With no one to look after it, sooner or later someone will encroach. Better us than someone else. If we don't act, we're just fools." The idea of seizing the land grew, festering in his mind until it became an obsession. Mrs. Toat, a calculating woman herself, frowned in thought after hearing him. "But that land is registered under Mr. Huang's name. What if he sues?" Mr. Toat smirked. "Let him sue. He works as a laborer all the way in Quang Ninh. Where will he find the time to come back and pursue a lawsuit? Besides, once it's built, it's built. Can he tear down my house? I'll pour all my money into it. I'll claim this is my only residence, and the authorities will find it hard to rule against me. According to the law, my only residence. Who would dare demolish it? At most, they'll force us to buy it at the state's price, or we can offer him another plot of our land. That would be fair." Mrs. Toat's eyes gleamed with greed as her husband analyzed. She nodded slightly. "All right, having a storefront on the main road would be great for business, but figure it out carefully." Thus, from that day on, Mr. Toat began to act. He hired a few acquaintances to lay the foundation for a house. Night after night, he brought in trucks of bricks and cement, making a big show of it. Villagers were skeptical, some warning him, "Mr. Toat, did you buy this land? I thought it belonged to Mr. Huang next door." Mr. Toat brushed them off with a dismissive chuckle. My house, whose else? Within 2 months, the foundation was complete, and the walls began to rise. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Huang returned. It was a rainy day, the road slick and wet. From a distance, Mr. Huang stepped off a passenger bus, carrying a few bags, planning to inspect his land and build a house after Tet. When he reached the plot, his eyes darkened. Half of a 3-story house stood imposingly on his land. Mr. Huang froze, unable to believe his eyes. He threw his bags to the ground, ran over, and shouted, "Who gave you permission to build here? This is my land." The startled workers quickly ran to call Mr. Toat. In a moment, Mr. Toat appeared, unfazed by the light rain, a cigarette still clutched in his hand. He looked at Mr. Huang, a faint smirk on his face. "Ah, Mr. Huang, you're back. My family bought this land last year. How did it become yours?" Mr. Huang, clutching his land certificate, retorted, "Mr. Toat, this land has its rightful owner. It's mine with a clear land certificate. Who are you to illegally occupy it?" Mr. Toat calmly took a puff of his cigarette. "What are you talking about? I've poured all my money and effort into this. If I tear it down, where will I live? Do you have any proof that I'm wrong? I have all the permits to build my house. What are you going to do about it?" Mr. Huang, now trembling with rage, gripped his certificate tightly. "This is my land with a clear red book. Stop immediately. I will call the authorities to deal with this." Mr. Toat scoffed. "Call them. My house has a clear red book too. I'm just building my house here." The sound of rain pattering on the roof joined their increasingly heated argument. Curious villagers gathered outside, whispering about how the once peaceful plot had become the village's focal point. News of the fierce quarrel on Mr. Huang's return spread throughout the village. People discussed it in water stalls, at the market, even by the village shrine. That Toat is truly reckless. How dare he build on someone else's registered land? He must have planned it all out, relying on his connections and money to build half a house. Now, even if he's sued, it'll be difficult. But then, Huang is too gentle. He's never raised his voice at anyone before. I wonder if he'll really pursue this case to the end. The back and forth left Mr. Huang even more resentful. That evening, he sat at the wobbly wooden table in his parents' old, dilapidated house, his hands trembling as he held a cup of tea. Mrs. Huang sat opposite him, her eyes red and swollen. "What are you going to do? If we let this go, we lose everything. But I'm afraid we don't have the connections to win against him." Mr. Huang gritted his teeth, his voice a resolute hiss. "This is our land, painstakingly saved for. I cannot let someone else steal it, no matter how difficult it is. I must reclaim what's rightfully ours." The next morning, Mr. Huang went to the district office to file a lawsuit. He brought along photocopies of his land use rights certificate. The officer received the documents and scheduled a court date. The summons for Mr. Huang and Mr. Toat to appear in court was like a stone thrown into a calm pond, stirring the entire village. Many secretly hoped Mr. Huang would win to deter Mr. Toat's greed, but not a few thought, going to court might not guarantee a win, and you might just waste money. On the day of the trial, the district courthouse was packed. Villagers flocked to watch, as if it were a festival, curious to see if justice would prevail against the arrogant usurper. Inside the courtroom, Mr. Huang stood as the plaintiff, his face gaunt, his eyes determined. Opposite him, Mr. Toat sat in the defendant's chair, dressed in a white shirt and tailored trousers, his hair slicked back, a sneer constantly playing on his lips. He even hired a young lawyer from the provincial city, as if to intimidate. The judge, after reviewing the documents, stated in a stern voice, "The disputed land is currently registered under Mr. Huang's name. Mr. Toat arbitrarily built on this land without the owner's consent, which is unlawful. The court orders Mr. Toat to immediately cease construction and resolves the dispute." Buzz of whispers erupted. Everyone thought Mr. Toat would have to back down, but he suddenly stood up, his voice booming. "Your Honor, I have invested all my life savings and effort into building this house. I built it by mistake on the wrong land, not intentionally. I request to buy Mr. Huang's land at an agreed price." Mr. Huang, infuriated, countered, "You are twisting words. The land has an owner, and I have documents to prove it. You knew this and still intentionally built on it. This is encroachment. I have 3 adjacent plots to build a multi-generational house. Now you've encroached on the middle plot, dividing my land into 3. I will not agree to sell. I demand Mr. Toat tear down his house and return my land." The judge pounded the gavel, demanding order. After a heated debate, the trial concluded with a temporary suspension of enforcement, ordering both parties to negotiate. Mr. Huang sighed in relief, thinking that at least justice was leaning his way. But Mr. Toat walked out of the courtroom, closing his eyes in a cold smile. Negotiate with Huang? Does he think it'll be easy? If I give up, I wouldn't be Toat. Indeed, afterwards, Mr. Toat redoubled his efforts. He hired workers who worked day and night, making a big show of it. Villagers, seeing the strange activity, asked, but Mr. Toat only smiled. My house is nearly finished. I can't let it be damaged by rain and sun. Besides, it's either an exchange of land or a direct purchase. I didn't steal anything, so what's there to worry about? Within half a month, the 3-story house was almost complete. Mr. Toat and his family moved in, defying the court's decision. He even organized a lavish housewarming party, complete with white lanterns, that lasted all night. That night, Mr. Toat and his wife cleaned and decorated through the night. By morning, their 3-story house on the main road looked as if it had donned a new, radiant cloak. From the black-painted fence and gate, standing out against the white walls, 2 tall, symmetrical palm trees swayed as if welcoming guests from afar. Red, clean tiles paved the entrance, leading to the main door. The spacious facade blended modern and traditional elements. The upper floor was clad in gleaming granite, the second floor painted a light yellow with a curving balcony and intricate wrought iron railings. Large glass windows allowed the morning sunlight to stream in, making the space even more dazzling. Inside, the bright living room featured a crystal chandelier hanging from the high ceiling, polished wooden furniture emitting a gentle aroma. The housewarming atmosphere was vibrant, with fresh flowers arranged everywhere. Guests arrived in droves, their laughter and the fragrant aroma of the feast filling the air. All of it created a lively picture of a new home, like a shining jewel, both grand and opulent, promising good fortune and prosperity to its owner. From early morning, Ha Village seemed to awaken to the sounds of guests being invited, laughter, clinking chopsticks, and shouts of celebration. It was, after all, an occasion to show off the new house. A wooden banner in the front yard read, "Happy Housewarming," as if defying public opinion. Flowers and trays of offerings were arranged. Guests gazed up at the sparkling new 3-story house, adorned with red brick, glass windows, and gleaming iron railings. Mr. Toat, radiant in his new clothes, received blessings with trembling hands. Mrs. Toat stood beside him, smiling, but her eyes held a worried glint, like someone who had just won a battle but still secretly feared loss. Trays of offerings were laid out on the new altar, with fake gold and silver ingots prominently placed in the center, along with candles, rice, salt, and fresh flowers, all arranged to be as solemn as possible. Everyone waited for the shaman to arrive, believing that a housewarming ritual with offerings to the deities would bring peace to the new home. Soon, the shaman arrived at the house, a small figure in old robes, carrying a bag of ritual items. He bowed, sprinkled water, and scattered salt around. Villagers, both sacred and profane, watched eagerly. From his bag, he took out a new incense burner, placing it in the center of the altar. Mr. Toat stepped forward, his hands trembling as he lifted the incense burner, muttering prayers. I respectfully appeal to our ancestors, please bless our family with peace. Several sticks of incense were lit, glowing red, emitting smoke. But as the flames flickered, the smoke that rose was not the usual gray. Instead, it was a slender, delicate blue, like morning mist, coiling around the top of the incense burner, then quickly fading, dying out. Everyone fell silent. Elderly villagers looked at each other, secretly guessing something ominous. A housewarming where the incense failed to burn was bad luck. The shaman did not give up. He quickly grabbed 3 more incense sticks, instructing the family, "Listen carefully. This time I must do it seriously. Burn the incense and pray sincerely." The second time the flames flickered, the incense burned brightly for a few seconds, then died down again, leaving only ash scattering in the air. People began to whisper. Some considered backing away, others cast worried glances at Mr. Toat. For the third time, the shaman raised the incense high, muttering incantations, hoping the crackle of fire and the rising smoke would carry the prayers to the heavens. But suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept into the courtyard. The incense seemed to be sucked downwards, the blue smoke coiling into a tight spiral around the incense burner, then extinguished, breaking into cold ash fragments. Many felt a chill, broke out in a sweat, and stepped back. Mrs. Toat clutched her chest, her eyes wide. "What's happening? It's so strange, dear." A loud bang then echoed from the altar. Everyone turned, gasping. The sturdy altar shook violently, as if cracking, as if a powerful force from beneath was pushing it. The wooden frame groaned and cracked. In a flash, the altar collapsed, the porcelain incense burner shattering into countless pieces. Ash scattered, turning the festive scene into chaos. A cup, a plate, a vase crashed down, their shattering echoing like groans. Sharp ceramic shards skittered across the tiled floor, making a piercing sound. From the empty space where the incense burner had been, a long, mournful wail, like someone crying out in despair, escaped, making everyone's hair stand on end. In the midst of the turmoil, little Thou, Mr. Toat's 2-year-old granddaughter, usually a lively and obedient child clinging to her grandmother, suddenly stiffened. Her aunts and uncles rushed over, thinking she was scared. But Thou's face underwent a terrifying transformation. Her neck twisted unnaturally to one side, her head no longer moving normally but snapped at a sharp, unnatural angle as if dislocated. Her normally clear eyes rolled back, leaving only whites like 2 coins, her gaze vacant. People recoiled, many screaming. Mrs. Toat trembled, clasped her hands, and prayed, not knowing what to do. Thou began to speak in a voice that was not her usual childish one, deep, hoarse, completely out of sync with her tiny body. The voice wavered, chaotic, sometimes sounding like a booming roar, other times like someone in agonizing pain. "You are thieves. You stole my house, my land. You will pay with your lives, with your souls. This is endless karma." It was as if someone from the past was fiercely scolding and cursing. Everyone was struck dumb. Mr. Toat's face, once ruddy with joy, turned ashen. His hands trembled. Thou's mother sobbed silently, calling out her daughter's name. "Thou, Thou, what's wrong, my child?" Thou seemed not to recognize anyone, her head bobbing slightly. She stammered out terrifying commands, then suddenly went limp, silent as if pulled back. The child's face contorted in pain, as if someone had just used her body to vent their anger. Amidst the shouts, cries, and screams of panic, the shaman awkwardly mumbled incantations. However, his eyes increasingly showed fear. His steps faltered, his chants became jumbled. He began to plead, "Master, master, please cure my grandchild. Please reconsecrate the house for us, master. Why is this happening?" The shaman turned, his eyes wide as if he hadn't slept for many nights. He forced a weak smile, trying to sound authoritative. "Calm down, everyone, I will handle this. Powerful spells require strict procedures. Let me re-examine things carefully." He asked for more space. Incense was vigorously burned, wine poured, incense lit, and he clasped his hands, shouting. He pulled a black cloth bag from his pocket, blew some powder over the offerings and the tiled floor. Everyone shivered again, watching, hoping the shaman would restore balance and dispel the heavy, oppressive atmosphere, waiting for a miracle. Suddenly, a black cat appeared from the corner of the yard, as if it had emerged from nowhere. It dashed towards the altar, its steps light as falling leaves. The cat showed no fear, instead it leaped onto the altar, yowling fiercely. The shaman gasped, his face paling. The black cat stomped its paws on the altar, its claws raking at the offerings, making them wobble and nearly topple. Then the cat arched its back, its fur bristling, and leaped onto the incense burner, letting out a piercing shriek like a primal warning. The cat's actions terrified everyone. Some women rushed forward, trying to chase it away, but their outstretched hands seemed unable to touch it. It scaled the high altar, pulling at the tablecloth, knocking over the oil lamp, shattering several flower vases into countless pieces, symbolizing the shattering of all hopes. The sound of breaking glass and clattering echoed. The shaman stared at the cat, his face ashen, as if he had seen something beyond his comprehension. A paper talisman he had drawn fell to the ground, a few characters on it seeming to tremble in the air. The shaman suddenly knelt, clutching his head, muttering, "Impossible! This is a sign of a demonic entity. What have you done to desecrate it? There is a restless, vengeful spirit here." His voice was strained like a taut string. "I cannot do it. Anyone who stays in this house, anyone who continues, will only die." These words silenced the entire courtyard. Everyone looked at the shaman, their eyes filled with fear and bewilderment. Then the shaman abruptly stood up, turned, and fled in a hurry. As he ran, he shouted, his voice cracking, "This house has a ghost. A ghost demands lives. Anyone who gets involved will die. I can't save you. I just heard a voice of vengeance saying the whole family will die if you don't leave." The family was stunned and pleaded, grabbing the shaman's sleeve. "Master, master, don't leave us, just continue and we'll double your fee." The shaman shook his head, his face distorted. It has already been called. The blue fire has appeared, the incense extinguished 3 times. This is not an ordinary problem, it's a malevolent spirit. I'm sorry, your family must find a more powerful spiritual master. With that, he fled, his hair disheveled, leaving behind a terrified crowd and a house filled with Thau's cries and scratching sounds. Give it back. Give it back, you will die. After the shaman left, the family fell into chaos. People whispered in fear. Someone suggested taking little Thau to the pagoda for a blessing. Others said a sorcerer should be called. A heavy dread weighed on everyone's minds. Mr. Toat stood in the middle of the courtyard, his usually confident face now distorted. His hands clenched, his head spinning. The land he had poured his sweat, blood, and money into now became a nightmare, his housewarming turning into a harbinger of doom. People gradually left, or a few helped quickly carry Thau inside. Only Thau's cries remained, and the others avoided eye contact. That night, a cold wind descended upon Ha village, whispering like a mournful sigh. Mr. Toat's new house, once a symbol of his ambition and triumph, now radiated fear. Within it there were whispers, the extinguished blue smoke, the shattered incense burner, the ominous black cat, and the shaman's warning, "This land has a ghost. No one should dare to seize it or they will lose their lives." Mr. Toat's entire family couldn't sleep, leaning against their brand-new sofa, their eyes filled with disbelief. Mr. Toat finally spoke. "What is this? Little Thau is clearly possessed. Is someone casting a spell on us?" Mrs. Toat, exhausted, retorted, "Spells? What era are we in to still believe in such superstitions? But how do you explain what happened in our house today? Even the shaman ran away. Little Thau has recovered after going to the hospital. The doctor said she had a head injury affecting her nerves, making her delirious. There's nothing supernatural about it." "You know her mother suffered from meningitis once, don't you?" Mr. Toat pondered for a moment before replying. "What you said might be true, but it's still a housewarming where the altar collapsed and a black cat caused trouble. We still need to consult a shaman to see what's going on. We poured all our money into this house. We can't afford to have any regrets." Mrs. Toat clicked her tongue again. "You're always making a mountain out of a molehill. Every new house has some initial bad luck. A few more days and the year will be over, and so will our worries. What's the big deal? Remember when you and I built the old house? Didn't you fall and break your leg?" Mr. Toat nodded. "If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgot." The next day, the sky over Ha village was clear, a stark contrast to the lingering, drizzling rain of the past few days. The road in front of Mr. Toat's house, still under construction, was always wet and muddy. Villagers were now accustomed to the sight of his gleaming new house, rising imposingly. In their hearts, everyone felt indignant at first, then annoyance, and finally, a grudging acceptance with only occasional whispers lingering. Mr. Toat, since moving in, grew even more complacent. In the mornings, he would stand on his balcony, smoking, watching the traffic below, thinking, "Soon, when the road is finished, the shop will be busy and will rake in money. This house will surely bring prosperity." However, this short-lived prosperity would not last long. Misfortune arrived unexpectedly, like a venomous wind creeping into the newly built house. Just 1 week after moving in, Mr. Toat was hit with Mr. Huang's calamity. It was raining intermittently. Mr. Toat's youngest son, Kwang, only 18, had gone to town to meet friends on his motorbike. He was studying electronics. Kwang often came home late, and his parents didn't pay much attention. But this time, as he left, the wind suddenly picked up, dark clouds gathered, and the air turned unusually cold. Around 9 p.m., Mr. Toat's phone rang. Mrs. Toat answered, her face paling at the frantic voice of a stranger on the other end. "Is this Mr. Toat's family? Your child had an accident on the way to the district town, a serious one. He's been taken to the emergency room." Mrs. Toat screamed, dropping the phone. Mr. Toat, stunned, frantically called for a ride. That night, the entire family rushed to the hospital. Kwang lay on the emergency bed, his face bruised and purple, his legs mangled. His spine suffered severe trauma. The doctor shook his head, saying, "We saved his life, but there's a high probability he'll be permanently paralyzed." The news was like a bolt of lightning from a clear sky. Mrs. Toat collapsed, weeping hysterically. Mr. Toat stood frozen, his face ashen, unable to utter a single word. The next day, the villagers of Ha discussed it. "That Toat's house is too evil. Now his son bears the burden. Karma won't spare the greedy. But poor Kwang, he did nothing wrong. It's truly the father's sins visited upon the son. He thought he could easily swallow someone else's land and bring it into his home. If not this calamity, then another." Several women noted, "Hasn't Mr. Toat's house been plagued by bad luck ever since the housewarming?" These words were like daggers piercing Mr. Toat's heart. He tried to convince himself that accidents happen unexpectedly and had nothing to do with the land. Every new house has some initial bad luck. It will pass in a few days. Every night, Mr. Toat returned home late. The rain had stopped, and a crescent moon hung low in the sky. As he passed the abandoned plot near his house, he saw a distant white figure, standing silently like a woman. He slowed down, but in a blink the figure vanished. Mr. Toat, startled, quickly sped up, a cold sweat beading on his forehead. When he got home, he told no one, fearing he'd be called weak-hearted. A few days later, little Thao, barely 2 years old, woke up in the middle of the night, crying hysterically. When her parents rushed in, they found the child clutching her pillow, her face white, pointing frantically around the room and saying, "Someone is standing there." Mrs. Toat, terrified, hugged her grandchild. Mr. Toat quickly turned on the room light but saw nothing. Just a dream and imagination, he thought. But from that night on, Thao cried every night, insisting that a lady in white came to her, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes outside the window, sometimes at the head of her bed. One time, she even said the lady sat next to her and told her to go outside, telling her that everyone in the house would die. Hearing the child, Mrs. Toat shivered and couldn't sleep. Mr. Toat tried to dismiss it, but even he began to have endless nightmares, seeing a strange face staring at him with vacant white eyes, a wet body as if just emerging from the ground. Before Kwang's accident could even begin to heal, other troubles followed. Mrs. Toat suddenly fell ill, suffering from a persistent fever and cough that doctors couldn't diagnose. Every night, she felt a heavy weight on her chest, unable to breathe, as if icy hands were pressing down. Mr. Toat himself often felt dizzy, and everywhere he went, he heard whispers. "You stole my land, you destroyed my house. Your family will never know peace." In just half a month, the atmosphere in the house became unusually gloomy. Anyone who entered felt a chill, their breath catching. Especially the children, who stopped playing and laughing. At night, villagers passing by sometimes heard mournful cries echoing from inside the walls. Another night, Mr. Toat had to attend a meeting in the commune. It was drizzling and the road was deserted. As he turned near his house, a figure in a long white dress suddenly appeared in the middle of the road, its face completely covered. Mr. Toat slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding. He shouted, "Who's there? Get out of the way." The white figure didn't move. His headlights shone brightly, but its face was blurry, indistinct. Mr. Toat shivered, quickly turned his car around and took another route. When he arrived home, he was drenched in sweat, his hands still trembling. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of the white figure lingered in his mind. Towards dawn, he drifted off, only to dream that the same figure entered his room, its face close to his. A chilling breath fanned his neck. He woke up with a start, his heart threatening to leap from his chest. Gradually, the strange stories about Mr. Toat's house spread throughout the village. Some said Mr. Huang had hired a sorcerer to cast a spell. Others believed the house was built on an old burial ground. Elderly folks recounted how the land used to be a graveyard. When people relocated graves, some might have been left behind, and Mr. Toat's house was probably built on one of those spots. The rumors made people increasingly shun Mr. Toat's family. The market and shops were filled with whispers. "That family is haunted, they're about to fall apart. Serve them right for being greedy." Mr. Toat grew increasingly haggard. He was once an arrogant man, but now his eyes always showed a clear weariness. When he went out, he heard people talking behind his back, making him even more enraged. Returning home, he faced illness, weeping, and his children's fear. His gleaming new house, once his pride, had become a living hell. Unable to bear it, Mr. Toat began to look for someone to blame. He was convinced Mr. Huang was behind everything, using black magic to harm his family. One evening, in a fit of anger, he lashed out at his wife and children. "It's not ghosts or spirits, it's all because that Huang hired a shaman to harm us. He wants me to abandon the house and give him back the land." He looked at the wall, his face dark and sinister. Mrs. Toat frowned, "But why couldn't any of the shamans we saw detect it? Didn't you already invite one to look?" "They all just seemed crazy." "I'll find a better shaman to reverse this spell." He said it, but a vague fear gnawed at his heart. Perhaps even he had personally seen the white figure blocking his path and heard whispers in the night. He was sick with pain, yet couldn't explain it. He discussed it with Man, his eldest son. Man, what do you think about these strange things happening in our house? Is it because of the land? Man replied. Our family has always been atheists, Dad, and you never believed in ghosts. It's just that with Kwang in the hospital, Mom has been worried, losing sleep, becoming anxious, and you're not at ease either. Tomorrow, I'll go get some talismans, we can hang one in each room, and I'll keep one with me. Villagers say these talismans, drawn with rooster blood, ward off evil spirits. They say the shaman who draws them is very skilled. Indeed, after Man brought the talismans, Mr. Toat's house seemed to quiet down. Mr. Toat felt comfortable in his house, no longer troubled by worries or sleepless nights. That day, Man called home to give his father an update. Dad, you should check on Mr. Huang's situation. I heard people saying Mr. Huang is about to return and demand the land fiercely. True enough, the next day, Mr. Huang came directly to their house, knocking on the door, asking Mr. Toat to come out and talk. Mr. Toat opened the door, holding a cup of tea, calmly taking sips. Then, in a calm voice, he said, Mr. Huang, I'll be honest. My house is already built. No matter how stubborn you are, you won't gain anything. How about this? You sell the land to me. I'll pay a lower but reasonable price. Or you can exchange it for a spacious plot of my land for your garden. It would benefit both of us. Mr. Huang listened, then slammed his hand on the table. Don't you dare threaten me. I'd rather leave the land empty my whole life than sell it to a thief like you. Mr. Toat smirked, his eyes flashing with a hint of challenge. Then try it. My house is built. Who dares tear it down? The law is on my side. It may be your land, but it's my house now. Don't cause trouble. This statement was like a splash of cold water on Mr. Huang's face. He was stunned, angry, and helpless. Time passed. The lawsuit dragged on for many sessions, but Mr. Toat refused to return the land. He repeatedly argued that the house was his only residence, and if it were destroyed, his family would be homeless. District officials tried to mediate many times but shook their heads in futility. Meanwhile, Mr. Huang became increasingly distressed. His job at the mine was affected because he had to return home constantly for the lawsuit. His money dwindled, and his spirit grew weary. Every night, he tossed and turned, thinking of the land he had poured his sweat and blood into, now taken by another, and it hurt like salt in a wound. Once, in despair, Mrs. Huang decided to post their story on social media, uploading photos of their legal documents and the house built illegally, along with the caption, "This is my land, legally purchased with documents, yet my neighbor arbitrarily built a house on it. The authorities haven't resolved it yet. I hope the community will speak up to help us reclaim justice." The post quickly went viral, and many expressed outrage at Mr. Toat's actions. But this joy was short-lived, as Mr. Toat retaliated. He had his lawyer file a countersuit against Mr. Huang for defamation and damaging his family's reputation. News spread, causing a stir in the village. Some sneered that Mr. Toat will stop at nothing. Poor Mr. Huang, he's a double victim now, suing for his land and being countersued. The pressure escalated to an extreme on both sides. One afternoon, by chance, they met at the market. Mr. Huang and Mr. Toat exchanged harsh words and their anger erupted. Both lunged at each other. Villagers had to intervene, but Mr. Huang still suffered a cut on his forehead, blood gushing down. From then on, Mr. Huang stopped confronting Mr. Toat. He quietly gathered his documents, waiting for the authorities to act. In his heart, his anger had subsided into a stubborn patience. Mr. Toat, on the other hand, after the brawl, strutted around triumphantly, confident that he had secured the land and no one could touch it. Every evening, he would stand on his second-floor balcony, watching the cars flow below, his eyes full of self-satisfaction. He was completely unaware that behind that triumphant facade, a dark shadow was gradually descending upon his house, bringing with it a chilling scent that permeated to the bone. Kwang had been bedridden for 2 months. Now slightly lucid, his face was pale, his lips dry, his eyes sunken, his bandaged legs in agonizing pain. His parents sat beside him, asking repeatedly. He trembled, his voice broken and interrupted. I didn't fall on my own, Dad. Someone blocked my way. Who blocked me? A woman, not exactly human. She was a ghost. Now she's telling me." Kwang shivered as he recounted. That night, returning from town, it was drizzling. The highway was deserted, only the headlights of his motorbike casting a long beam on the road. He rode, humming, trying to shake off the chilling feeling. But as he approached the abandoned land, he saw a faint white figure ahead. A woman in a long white dress stood still in the middle of the road, her long, disheveled hair flowing down to her waist, almost completely covering her face. In the headlights, her white dress seemed to have dark red stains, like blood. Kwang quickly honked his horn loudly, repeatedly shouting, "Get out of the way, it's late at night. Are you trying to scare people?" But the figure didn't move. When he was just a few meters away, she slowly raised her head. Kwang gasped, horrified. It was not the face of a living person. Her eye sockets were black and oozing blood, her cheeks torn all the way to her ears, revealing jagged, saw-like teeth. Water dripped from her hair onto the ground, smelling of decay. Kwang shuddered as he recounted this much. I didn't even have time to react. She suddenly lunged at me, her mouth wide open as if to swallow me whole. Kwang's whole body tensed up, gripping the blanket tightly, staring blankly as he continued. I was so scared, I tried to swerve, but it was strange. I felt like my hands weren't my own. The bike suddenly swerved as if icy hands were gripping the handlebars. I tried to pull away, but I couldn't. The bike swayed and then plunged straight into the ditch. He paused, catching his breath, then continued. Before I fell, I heard a piercing cackle in my ear. The sound was so terrifying. Then I saw her face right in front of me, blood dripping from her eye sockets onto my face. Kwang burst into tears, clutching his head. I don't want to remember it, I'm so scared. Mr. Toat gripped his son's trembling hand, but a primal fear surged in his heart. He had never believed in ghosts, but seeing his son, trembling and his eyes vacant, he couldn't deny it. Kwang continued, his voice now fading. I clearly remember when the bike fell, I felt my legs being crushed, a powerful force flattening them. I heard a bone snap, a piercing pain, but I didn't pass out immediately. I opened my eyes and saw her face right next to me, staring. Kwang choked back tears, his eyes wide. That image still haunts me, right before my eyes. Oh God, her face was twisted and torn, maggots wriggling out of her mouth. She leaned down and whispered into my ear, "You stole my land, you took my life, your family will die." I cried out, "I didn't do anything, why are you harming me?" Mrs. Toat burst into sobs, hugging her son tightly, but Kwang still trembled. She will come back, she hasn't forgiven me. From that night on, Kwang never slept peacefully. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the scene of the bike losing control and the bloody face up close. He would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming, flailing, causing a commotion in the hospital room. Once, in a semi-conscious state, Kwang cried out, "Don't catch me, don't drag me down, I won't go there." Everyone was terrified, holding him down as he tried to jump out the window. Finally, Kwang looked at his parents, his face desperate, pleading, "Mom, Dad, I don't want to die, but I know she won't spare me. Every time I close my eyes, I hear her calling my name. She says, 'You must pay for your family's karma. You stole my land, you must die.'" These words made the entire room turn cold. Mrs. Toat fainted, while Mr. Toat stood frozen, his face drained of all color. In his mind, the village rumors echoed. The house is on a burial ground, haunted by malevolent spirits. He had tried to convince himself that his son's accident was just a coincidence, but Kwang's chilling account and terrified eyes shattered that fragile shield. Now he was no longer sure of anything. Kwang groaned, "I'm so scared. I'm afraid she broke my bones." Hearing his son, Mr. Toat felt numb, but his eyes were still stern as he scolded his son, "You're just dreaming nonsense." But after that day, he himself couldn't sleep. From the day Kwang woke up, every night Mr. Toat dreamed of a long-haired woman holding a whip, lashing him on the back, crying, give back the land to me. You stole my land, I'll take your whole family's lives." He woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. His head felt like a wound. When he looked in the mirror, he was horrified to see long red marks like whip lashes on his back. As days passed, the house grew gloomier. The air was always heavy and oppressive, as if a cold, earthy smell emanated from deep within the ground. The walls still smelled of fresh paint, but after a few weeks, patches of white paint peeled off, revealing damp, moldy spots. At night, the hallway lights flickered erratically, casting a yellow, ghostly glow, making the entire house feel like a giant stone tomb. Huang, man's wife and Mr. Toat's daughter-in-law, usually stayed home taking care of their child. When Kwang had his accident, the atmosphere became even more suffocating. Everyone in the house was gloomy. But since Kwang woke up, Huang was the one who suffered the most. Strange phenomena that others might dismiss haunted her every night. After putting Thao to bed, Huang went to the kitchen to clean up. Outside, a light rain was falling, and a cold wind howled through the cracks in the door. Suddenly, she heard water gurgling in the sink. She tried to turn the faucet, but it was already off. Yet, the water in the sink rippled, reflecting not her face, but the pale face of a woman with long, disheveled hair. Her eyes were sunken, and strands of black, matted hair began to coil around Huang's neck, binding her tightly. Huang, horrified, pulled her hand away, her body falling backward onto the tiled floor. But when she looked up, the sink was completely empty, only the sound of dripping water echoing. Huang, trembling, quickly turned around. But from the bathroom in the hallway, she heard gurgling sounds as if someone was drowning beneath the water. Her heart pounded. She staggered towards it. The door creaked open slightly. Inside, it was pitch black. She flipped the light switch and the bulb flickered, then slowly illuminated the mirror above the sink. Huang froze. In the mirror, it wasn't her, but a ghostly white woman, blood trickling from the corners of her eyes. The woman slowly smiled, then whispered in a hoarse voice, "This is my land. Who allowed you to take it?" Immediately, the mirror cracked from within, and a cold, black hand reached out, grabbing Huang's neck. She stumbled, hitting the door hard, struggling to break free. When she finally escaped, the bathroom door slammed shut with a heavy lock. Inside, water gushed loudly, as if someone was being drowned in the toilet bowl. Huang trembled, her whole body icy cold. She wanted to run to her room, but her legs felt heavy, as if being pulled back. As she reached for the light switch, it clicked, and a cloud of hot, pungent steam erupted. In the mist, a pale face appeared, with cracked, blood-stained lips. An ethereal hand reached out from the steam, grabbing Huang's arm, squeezing it tightly until it turned purple. She cried out, dropping the light switch. The bulb shattered on the floor with a loud crash. But there was only white mist, no face on her arm, the purple bruise still deeply etched as proof. Shaking, she ran to her room, trying to reassure herself. "It's nothing, just a dream." The bedroom door opened then, the bedside lamp casting light where little Thao lay sound asleep. Huang sighed in relief, sitting on the edge of the bed. But as she bent down to pull the blanket over her daughter, she saw two vacant white eyes staring up from under the bed. The face was pale, its mouth wide open, revealing a bloody, protruding tongue. Thao suddenly recoiled, hitting her back against the wall. Just then, little Thao sat upright, her feet dangling, revealing her tiny body. The child, still sleepy, asked, "Mommy, what's wrong with you?" Huang reached out to hug her daughter. But the child's small hand suddenly went limp, slowly transforming into a swollen hand covered in mud. Huang screamed in terror, letting go. Before her eyes, it wasn't little Thao, but the corpse of a weeping woman, her flesh torn and rotten, long hair stained with blood, eyes bulging from their sockets. Huang let out a desperate shriek, clutching her head and wailing, until the light suddenly flashed back on, and it was truly little Thao, crying, scared by her mother's fright. Huang, trembling, hugged her child, stammering, "It's nothing, mommy's here, it's okay." Deep down, she knew there was something terrifying hiding in this house. From the water, from the kitchen, from under the bed everywhere, a ghostly presence watched. These illusions didn't disappear. They were getting closer, as if wanting to devour everything. That night, Huang sat huddled in the corner of her room, her eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. She heard faint whispers through the door crack, "You stole my land, you will pay the price." The words drilled into her brain, making her scream and pull at her hair. The ghost didn't leave but lingered in every breath, every drop of cold sweat on her skin. In a flash, she became like someone insane, her eyes bloodshot, laughing and crying at the same time. Huang flung open the door and rushed out of the house, running for her life into the cold, drizzling night. The rain pelted her face, chilling her to the bone. She collapsed by the roadside, weeping hysterically as Man's car headlights shone on her. Man pulled over and asked, "Huang, what's wrong? Why are you running out here?" Huang burst into tears. "Man, our house, there's a ghost. Calm down, let me take you home." "No, I won't go home, our house has a ghost, I'm so scared." It took Man a long time to calm his wife down and take her home. The rain grew heavier, thunder rumbled. Man was startled by a knock at the door. He went to open it as if to a second floor. But as he turned back, the knocking echoed again. He rushed to the bedroom, shouting, "Who's playing tricks on me?" Suddenly, the door flew open, and a blast of cold wind swept in. In a flash of lightning, Man saw a white figure standing at the threshold, its hair flying wildly, its face ghostly pale without a nose or mouth. He gasped, falling backward, too stunned to utter a word. When he came to, it was already morning. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat, his legs weak, lying flat on the floor. Man stood up, trying to walk to the bedroom. Seeing his wife and daughter sound asleep in bed, he breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly changed his clothes and rushed to the hospital to tell his parents about the strange events of the previous night. The hospital, after days of rain and wind, was immersed in a damp gloom. Mr. Toat sat by the room door, his eyes red and swollen from lack of sleep. Mrs. Toat sat beside Kwang's bed, fanning him, occasionally mumbling, "This house, it's really something. Everyone feels lost there." Man hesitated for a long time, the images of the previous night swirling in his head. He knew if he kept silent, he would go mad. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you." Mrs. Toat looked up, seeing the worn-out look on her son's face. "What now? You look so haggard. Don't tell me you two are fighting." Man sat down on a plastic chair, his hands clenched until his knuckles were white. He swallowed, then spoke directly. "It's not about my wife and me, Mom. It's about the house. I think that house is haunted." Mrs. Toat immediately glared at him. "Say that again for me to hear." Man took a gulp of water and began to recount in detail. He told them about Huang's terrified nights because of the woman's figure in the kitchen and bathroom. Then it was his turn, hearing invisible footsteps, whispers in the dark, seeing glimpses of blood, then it vanishing. His voice grew strained, almost trembling with fear, as the ghostly images seemed to come alive before his eyes. He looked up, hoping for a sympathetic glance from his mother. But Mrs. Toat only gave him a cold, dismissive look. "Are you crazy, man? All that money, all that effort your father and I poured into building that beautiful house, and you say it's haunted?" Man lowered his head, his voice choked. "I'm not making it up, Mom. I saw and heard it with my own eyes and ears. We have to leave that place." "No one else living around there is affected, are they? It's just you and your wife, weak-hearted, overthinking things. And you already got talismans, didn't you? What's wrong since you started wearing them?" Man raised his head, his deep-set eyes wide. "It's not imagination, Mom. You weren't there, you don't know. Huang is terrified, losing sleep in a panic, and I also feel like someone is watching me, touching me every night. Mom, I'm afraid our whole family will suffer." This pleading made Mrs. Toat pause, but then she clenched her trembling hands. "I don't believe in ghosts or spirits. I just think you're upset and overthinking things. You're just like women, overanalyzing. We haven't even had a chance to enjoy the new house and you want to leave? People will laugh at us." Man, his voice desperate and fierce, replied, "I don't want to leave, Mom, but it's the truth. You and Dad stay there for one night, you'll see. I'm old, where else can I go?" Mrs. Toat's tears began to flow. "Are you throwing me out on the street? Your father worked hard his whole life to have that grand house. Now you say there are ghosts and spirits. If you're scared, then get out. Don't drag me into this." The words were like a dagger plunged straight into Man's chest. He slumped into the chair, silent. In his mind, the eerie cackle from the previous night echoed again, blending with Kwang's faint breaths on the bed and his mother's sobs. The air in the room turned cold. Only the heavy rain outside the window could be heard. The neon lights glowed dimly. The image of the mother and son facing each other, one resolutely disbelieving, the other desperate from what he had seen and heard, the undeniable cracks. He firmly stated, "If that's the case, my wife and I will move out. If we stay there for one more day, I'm afraid my wife will be driven mad. Last night, Huang ran out onto the street like a madwoman. If you don't care about your son, I care about my wife. I'm leaving." Mrs. Toat, furious, yelled, "You ungrateful child. I bore you through labor, raised you to this age, and you dare defy me? If you don't stay, then get out, get out." Even Kwang had said there was a ghost demanding the land, but she remained stubborn, afraid of losing face. The half-hearted argument with his mother made Man feel torn in two. One side was his duty as a son to obey and protect the family's honor. The other was the terrifying truth. He and Huang were living with it every night. The more he thought, the more panicked he became. Man decided to take his wife and child to his in-laws' house. That afternoon, Man quietly packed a few clothes, telling his wife to prepare some outfits for little Thao, then got his motorbike ready. Huang was already waiting in the yard, her face pale and sunken from lack of sleep. Thao clung to her mother's hand, constantly looking back at the house. The dark windows were like cold, empty eye sockets watching them. Huang trembled as she said, "Man, I'm so scared." Man didn't reply, just twisted the throttle, speeding off quickly. Huang's mother's house was across the district, near a large river. Man's mother-in-law, Mrs. Hang, was a kind, straightforward village woman but sharp and experienced. When she saw her daughter and son-in-law arrive in such a distraught state, she instinctively knew something was wrong. In the smoke-filled kitchen, Huang sat huddled in a corner, tightly hugging little Thao. Mrs. Hang sat opposite them, the lamplight casting shadows on her sun-darkened face, accentuating her wrinkles. She pressed them repeatedly, and finally Man was forced to recount everything. His voice grew tense as he detailed the horrors: the foul smell rising from under the floorboards at night, the clattering footsteps on the ceiling, the long hair covering his face in the mirror, and Huang fainting when the icy hand emerged from the toilet bowl, grabbing her shirt. Little Thao vaguely spoke strange things, as if someone was prompting her. By this point, Mrs. Hang stood frozen, her face turning pale. She clapped her trembling hands together, muttering, "Oh, dear heavens! It seems that house is not peaceful. I warned you when you first moved in. Looking at the direction of that land, I felt a chill down my spine. Your mother-in-law is truly sensitive to these things." Her eyes distant, she added, "Land near a graveyard with disrupted long mock dragon veins geomantic lines. No matter how beautiful the house, if it offends the spirits of the deceased, it will bring misfortune." The altar collapsing and the incense burner breaking during the housewarming was a clear omen. Huang huddled closer, shivering and bursting into tears. "I'm so scared, Mom. These past few days, it's like living in hell. Thao keeps coughing and cries every night. I don't dare close my eyes to sleep anymore." Mrs. Hang walked over to her daughter and grandchild, her voice deep and resolute. "Listen to me. This cannot be ignored. Ordinary people are helpless, but across the river there's an old shaman. We call him Master Mao. He has helped many families ward off evil. No one dares challenge him." Man looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Can Master Mao really help, Mom?" "Whether he can or not depends on fate, but if you don't try, your family will have no place to live. I sincerely advise you, as a man, you must be decisive. This is not just about ghosts and spirits, but about the lives of your wife and children." Man was silent for a long time, looking at Huang with tear-filled eyes. In his mind, the memories of the terrifying night resurfaced. He shivered, but this time, fear was overshadowed by a surge of anger. He clenched his hands, his voice firm. "All right, I'll go to Master Mao's house. Even if I have to lose all my money, I must protect my wife, my children, and my family." Mrs. Hang nodded, her eyes a mix of worry and trust. "That's right. I'll take you across the river, but remember, when you meet the master, you must be sincere. Don't hide anything. The vengeful spirit, it hears everything." Outside, the wind howled through the bamboo grove, sounding like mournful cries. The next morning, only a faint mist lingered. The entire riverside countryside was immersed in a silvery gray. Man pushed his old motorbike. Mrs. Hang had prepared a few fruits and flowers as offerings. Huang stayed at her mother's house to watch their child, but her face was still etched with extreme worry. Mrs. Hang reminded Man, "When you reach there, ask about the master right away. Don't linger." Man nodded, his hands damp with sweat. Hope and fear intertwined in his heart, each step heavy as stone. The small ferry crossed the icy river, the figure holding the oar guiding them to the other side. Below them, the river water swirled in strange circles. The old, rickety wooden ferry creaked like a sigh. The ferryman, an old man, looked at Man with an unusual gaze. "Are you too looking for Master Mao on the other side?" The sudden question startled Man. "How do you know, sir?" The old man just let out a dry chuckle, revealing his yellowed teeth. He then said softly, "The dark presence is very heavy now. You cannot avoid it. But remember, there are things you should listen to the master about, as many before you have." As he spoke, Mrs. Hang clutched her son-in-law's hand tightly, as if to emphasize. "The ferryman is right. When you meet the master, remember to tell him everything in detail." The ferry slowly crossed the river, the rhythmic splashing of the oar sounding like a funeral drum, making Man's heart heavy. On the other bank, shrouded in white mist, they only saw faint shadows of bamboo groves and a few moss-covered houses. They got off the ferry and stopped at a small house with a tilted tin roof. An old woman chewing betel nut looked at them with sharp, knowing eyes. She asked in a hoarse voice, "Are you too looking for Master Mao?" "Yes, madam. Could you tell us where his house is?" The old woman slowly spat out her betel juice. "Many people come looking for the master now, but not everyone gets to meet him. He's not like the village shamans, nor the wandering geomancers. They say he has a special calling, inherited ancient techniques to exorcise demons and evil spirits." Man was anxious. "Has the master ever helped anyone before? We heard he's very skilled." Mrs. Hang quickly glanced around. Last year, in a neighboring village, there was a wealthy family who built a villa on an old burial ground. After they moved in, misfortunes followed endlessly. Their youngest daughter, 13, was constantly tormented by shadow figures, crying and screaming as if someone was choking her. One servant in the house went mad and cut his own wrist. They invited many shamans, but all of them fled. Finally, they found Master Mao. He only brought a wooden peachwood sword and a red flag with ancient script. As soon as he stepped into the house, the altar caught fire, and mournful cries echoed throughout the village, making everyone tremble. But the master stood firm, chanting spells, driving the sword into the ground. A gust of wind erupted. People saw a long, black shadow screaming, convulsing as it was sucked in and then vanished. From then on, the family lived peacefully. Every Tet they still visit Master Mao, and you should hear the stories they tell. Man had never believed in the supernatural before, but the old woman's words were like a dose of salvation. He asked, "So, how can we meet the master?" "Just follow this path past the old well and you'll reach his 3-room house. He just moved. But remember, when you meet the master, you must be sincere. He turns away any family that comes to him with deceit." Man and Mrs. Hang thanked her and quickly set off. The muddy road was flanked by ancient, gnarled banyan trees. The wind howled, emitting strange, chilling sounds. Man shivered but gritted his teeth and continued. Finally, they stopped in front of a 3-room house with old, gray-tiled roofs and polished wooden pillars and beams. In the front yard stood an ancient banyan tree. The smell of incense wafted from the main hall, mixing with the earthy scent carried by the river wind. A large black dog lay at the doorstep, its eyes gleaming, looking at them strangely. It didn't bark, just stood up. Mrs. Hang took out the offerings and softly pleaded, "Please, master, help us. May the spirits allow us in, as if by magic." The dog slowly lay down, its eyes half closed as the two entered. Inside, the sound of a wooden fish drum echoed. A figure in brown robes with long white hair and beard invited them to sit on the rattan mats. Before they could even speak, the man's deep voice resonated. "Your family is being targeted by a ghost demanding lives." Man gasped, his feet feeling rooted to the ground. Mrs. Hang froze, cold sweat breaking out. Master Mao turned, his face gaunt, but his eyes shone brightly. His penetrating gaze made Man feel as if his deepest secrets were exposed. "That ghost has been clinging to you since the day you laid the foundation on that land. Its resentment is deep and unresolved. If it is not appeased, not only will your family be ruined, but you will all lose your lives." The master's voice was steady, echoing in the silent space. The oil lamp on the table suddenly flickered, then went out, as if a life force had just been extinguished. Man stammered, "Please, master, save us. I don't want my wife and children to die a tragic death." "My parents and younger brother, I can't save them either." Master Mao closed his eyes, meditating for a long moment. Finally, he slowly opened his eyes, his gaze deep and profound. "I can help, but that ghost is powerful and bears hundreds of years of intense resentment. If I intervene, I fear I too will suffer its retaliation. Are you prepared to face the consequences?" Man knelt down. "Even if I lose all my possessions, even if my body is torn apart, as long as my family is safe, I am willing." Mrs. Hang also earnestly pleaded for the master's help, stating that their family was desperate. The atmosphere in the house grew heavy. Outside, the wind howled, sounding like mournful cries echoing from the river. Master Mao placed his prayer beads down and said sternly, "Very well. Tonight I will return with you to that house. But remember, you must not disobey me. Do not look back if you hear a voice calling. Do not let go of my hand when I perform the ritual. If even one person loses faith, all of you will lose your lives." Man trembled but bowed his head and agreed. In his heart, fear surged, but it was overshadowed by the light of hope. Mrs. Hang then asked, "Master, please tell me what I need to prepare." "You need to prepare a full altar with paper money. Also, prepare 5 white cups, and most importantly, when you buy the flowers for the offering, buy them all from one place without stopping anywhere else. And when you return home, buy 20 clean, identical white bowls for the ritual. Besides these, you'll need 2 lengths of white silk, both of equal length. Prepare a young rooster, a pot of white sticky rice, and bring me a mulberry branch and a bowl of chicken blood. In addition to these items, the altar must include the dishes listed in this note." Master Mao said, taking out a sheet of paper covered in tight script and giving it to Man, adding, "Whoever buys these items as I instructed, return home and gather everyone. Most importantly, the head of the household absolutely cannot be absent." Man then asked, "Master, my younger brother had an accident and is in the hospital. He can't come back. Is there any way?" Master Mao replied, "There is a way, but you must bring an item he used, a strand of his hair, and a drop of his blood. From those, I will perform a ritual for his soul to be present. The head of the household is most important. Other family members can be represented by proxy in the ritual." That night, dark clouds covered the sky. The river flowed silently, deep and dark, carrying a heavy, pungent smell that made everyone shiver. Mr. Toad's house stood imposingly in the darkness, but it no longer looked cozy. The dark windows were like gaping maws, glittering eerily like bloodstains. Man led his wife and daughter outside, their faces pale. Mrs. Hang trembled as she lit the incense, then broke it into smaller pieces, placing them around. Mrs. Toat, however, stood with her arms crossed, her face scowling, as if waiting to watch a show. She stubbornly refused to believe in ghosts. If Mr. Toat hadn't slapped her at the hospital, forcing her to return for the ritual, she would never have come back. Master Mouse stepped solemnly into the courtyard, holding his peachwood sword and a cloth bag filled with talismans. Mr. Toat's dog, which had been growling in the shadows, went silent and recoiled to one side as if in awe. The master turned to everyone, his voice deep. "Tonight will not be easy. This vengeful spirit's energy is strong, it may not yield easily. But you must obey my commands absolutely, no doubts. Whatever I say, you must follow." Man nodded profusely, holding the trembling Thou, her eyes red. Only Mrs. Toat let out a derisive snort. "It's all just a show. How many shamans before you have come, taken their paper money and offerings, then fled in panic? I've never seen anyone exorcise these so-called ghosts. Be careful, you might lose your money and your life." The atmosphere grew tense. Man wanted to stop his mother, but it was too late. Master Mao merely frowned, a cold glint in his eyes. Mr. Toat then roared, "Woman, shut your mouth. Better to be safe than sorry. If you insist on talking, then go stand outside with the children." Mrs. Toat glared, annoyed, then went to the kitchen. In the main hall, a ritual altar was set up on a wooden table in the center of the room, covered with red cloth. Bowls of offerings, wine, chicken, and sticky rice were arranged. Master Mao placed talismans at the four corners of the house, drawing circles of rice and salt. The rhythmic sound of the wooden fish drum echoed as he chanted ancient spells in a strange, otherworldly language. Suddenly, the windows rattled violently. The wind outside, which had been still, howled fiercely. Thou screamed, burying her face in Huang's shoulder. A thick, pungent odor filled the room. A shadow appeared on the wall, the figure of a long-haired woman with a ghostly pale face, her eye sockets pitch black. It lowered its head, its voice a chilling hiss. "These wretched thieves. Tonight all of you will die." Huang trembled, wanting to kneel but unable to move, sweat pouring down her like rain. Man held his wife and child tightly. Master Mao brandished his wooden sword, shouting, "The karma is here. The resentment will be dispelled." He dipped the mulberry branch into the chicken blood and sprinkled it around. The candlelight flared brightly, the shadow on the wall shrieked, then dissolved into a wisp of smoke. Before anyone could sigh in relief, Mrs. Toat suddenly bellowed, "You fools, this is all just shadows from the light. What a waste of effort for a charlatan to deceive us." As soon as she finished speaking, a crackling sound erupted. The candles were extinguished. The wooden table shook violently. Huang shrieked, and a thick, pungent smoke filled the air. A cold gust of wind swirled through the main hall. Master Mao's face changed. "Oh no, the formation is broken." He spun around towards Mrs. Toat, who stood defiantly, her face red and scowling. "Don't blame me. This is my house, where I live, and there are no ghosts. Or are you the one Mr. Huang hired to cause trouble and turn this whole situation around?" Mrs. Toat said this because earlier, at the hospital, she had overheard someone saying Mr. Huang, unable to reclaim his land, had hired a shaman to send evil spirits to attack Mr. Toat's family, hoping to scare them all away so he could move into the house himself. She looked scornfully at Master Mao, gave a cold snort, and went to sit on the sofa. Immediately, a piercing cackle echoed throughout the house. From the ceiling, dozens of black, bony hands reached down, grasping and pulling as if to drag people down. Thou fainted. Huang screamed hysterically. Master Mao thrust his sword, simultaneously chanting spells. Light flashed and the black hands recoiled, but the protective circle of talismans was torn apart. Black smoke poured into the house, swirling into the form of a female demon with long, disheveled hair, her face torn to the ears, eyes red like fire. It shrieked, "This house is mine. No one is allowed to take it." Man trembled, pulling his wife and child towards the door. His mother-in-law knelt, pleading, but Mrs. Toat remained defiant. "I'm not afraid of you, you're just a shadow, I dare you to touch me." As soon as she finished speaking, the roof tiles shrieked. A hanging painting suddenly cracked and fell, hitting her leg with a loud thud. A cold wind blew, and an invisible hand squeezed her throat, making her gasp for breath. She staggered and fell to her knees, crying out in panic. Mom, what's wrong? Man turned to Master Mao, pleading, Master, please save my mother. Master Mao was drenched in sweat, wielding his sword and chanting spells, but the demon only cackled, its terrifying laughter echoing through the four walls. The flames in the incense burner died out. The ritual was completely broken. Master Mao dropped his sword, his eyes filled with anger. You did not keep your word. You allowed disrespect and contempt. I cannot help you anymore. This situation is beyond me. He quickly gathered his ritual items, stuffed them into his bag, and walked out. Master, please, Master, don't leave us. Man knelt, grabbing his robe. Suddenly, the floor exploded. The incense burner shattered, revealing silk ribbons inside. A red inscription like blood appeared on the white background. Woe to you thieves, you must die. Master Mouse swallowed hard, muttered a spell, and resolutely left. Before stepping out the door, he didn't look back but spoke for Mr. Toat's family to hear. I cannot vanquish this spirit. You cannot live in this house. Leave soon and you will be safe. Stay for even one day and your lives will hang by a thread. After speaking, he vanished into the silent, dark highway. Master Mao walked, his face pale with defeat. Suddenly, a swirling black mist appeared before him. The ghost's figure emerged, blocking his path, its hair matted with blood. It cackled, You tried to destroy me, you are not a match. The ground beneath him shook. In a whirlwind of dust, Master Mao immediately drew his sword, bit his fingertip, and smeared blood on the blade. He plunged the sword into the ground, chanting. Light flashed, the mist tore apart, and the ghost recoiled. Before it could completely vanish, it lunged at him, its icy hand gripping his throat. He gasped for breath, his eyes bulging. In an instant, he threw his last talisman, hitting the ghost's face directly. An explosion erupted. The ghost recoiled, shrieking, then vanished into the darkness. Master Mao fell to his knees, gasping for breath, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving violently. He knew the entity was not vanquished, only temporarily gone. He feared he had provoked a malevolent demon. If he didn't quickly return home and set up a protective ritual to save his own life, he might not survive. He staggered to his feet, looking at Mr. Toat's house, a dark mass in the night. His eyes were filled with sorrow and anger. This family brought this karma upon themselves. They were not sincere. No one can save them. Then he turned, his steps growing heavy, leaving behind him only the howling wind, like the demon's mocking laughter. Inside Mr. Toat's house, the heavy scent of incense smoke still lingered. The shattered incense burner on the tiled floor scattered offerings covering the ground. The piercing cackle of the demon, though faded, still echoed in everyone's minds. No one dared to move. Only Huang's uncontrollable sobs, Man's ragged breathing, and Mrs. Toat's soft moans could be heard as she gasped for air. Little Thao lay limp in her mother's arms, her body cold as ice, her face pale, her lips purple and lifeless. Man trembled, terrified for his child, then burst into tears. Thao, wake up, don't scare Dad. Huang clung to her child, but her eyes were vacant, crying hysterically, mumbling, It's back, it's sitting on the roof, looking at me, laughing. Then Huang's voice rose, and she let out a piercing cackle. Suddenly, she lunged, grabbing a broken piece of incense and stabbing it into the wall. This house is not ours. Man, horrified, quickly grabbed his wife's hand, but she struggled violently as if possessed. Finally, Mrs. Hang rushed forward, embracing her daughter. Tears streamed down her face. Enough, let's take her home. If we stay here any longer, she'll lose her mind and soul. She pulled Huang, muttering prayers, begging the spirits for protection. In the house, the atmosphere was as tense as a thread about to break. Man turned to Mrs. Toat, his voice filled with resentment. Mom, do you see? My wife and child are like this. Little Thao is unconscious, all because you refuse to believe. Mrs. Toat roared, turning red. Don't you dare blame me. I don't believe in any ghosts or spirits. All of you are just making things up to scare each other. I poured so much sweat and effort into building this house. You think I'll just abandon it? Never. Mr. Toat, who had been silent, finally spoke. Do you see how our daughter-in-law is losing her mind and our grandchild is unresponsive? At the hospital this afternoon, I told you what happened. Whether you believe it or not, you should have kept quiet and let the master do the ritual. Mrs. Toat shouted again. This is my whole life, meticulously saved, endured humiliation, and worked hard. What do you know about the blood I poured into this? I'm sure this is all Mr. Huang's doing. I heard today that his family invited a shaman to cast a spell. Maybe all this is Mr. Huang trying to harm us. Then she turned to Man. Instead of believing in ghosts, let's find a sorcerer to kill whoever is harming us. Man knelt beside his daughter, his voice firm. I won't stay here one more minute. My home is outside. If you don't believe, then stay and live in this haunted house. He walked out the door, step by step. Following him, his mother-in-law helped the staggering Huang, who looked like a drunkard. Their figures gradually vanished into the dim light, leaving behind a cold, empty house for Mr. Toat to endure alone. Mrs. Toat mumbled, but Mr. Toat sighed. He looked as if he had aged 10 years. He muttered, "The house is beautiful, but the people are broken. Do you see how you are harming our whole family? The master said it was haunted. Why are you so stubborn?" "You be quiet," Mrs. Toat roared. "You're always so weak-willed, scared of shadows. I won't abandon it, I won't abandon it. Who said you had to abandon the house that holds all our sweat and tears? No, but if there are ghosts, we must confront them." Mr. Toat looked at her with despair, saying no more. He quickly put on his coat and went out. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to the hospital. Kwang is still lying there. I can't bear it." With that, he left, leaving Mrs. Toat standing alone in the gloomy house. She sat hunched in the living room, before her the shattered altar. The oil lamps flickered, sometimes bright, sometimes dim. Outside, the wind howled in gusts, the wooden door creaking and shaking. She mumbled, her voice hoarse, "This house is mine. I poured all my sweat and tears into building it. Mr. Huang, you think you can destroy me? Don't dream of scaring me away." Suddenly, her throat went dry, her chest felt constricted. The air in the house was filled with a thick, foul smell like decaying fish. Something rustled in the kitchen, then clattered, as if someone was moving pots. "Who's there?" The house fell completely silent, only the sound of wind sneaking through the door cracks. Mrs. Toat shivered but forced herself to walk towards the kitchen. The light from the living room cast her shadow long and distorted on the wall. As she reached the kitchen door, she distinctly heard a long sigh right behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing. She told herself it was just her imagination. Then water began to drip from the ceiling. She looked up, and drops of red liquid like blood fell onto her hand. Her hand clenched in terror. She looked closely. It was just clear water. Trembling, she was about to turn back when the bathroom door next to her slammed shut with a bang, then swung open. A cold, damp air emanated from inside, along with a heavy, nauseating stench. Mrs. Toat staggered back as if the door were chained by an invisible force. Her legs felt heavy as lead as she stepped into the bathroom, which was pitch black. The small light bulb on the ceiling flickered repeatedly. The plastic bucket in front of the toilet suddenly bubbled with black, murky water, as if something was stirring within. Mrs. Toat shivered, quickly turning around. The door behind her slammed shut. She twisted the doorknob, but it was rigid. The more she twisted, the more she heard a faint chuckle from the other side. Mrs. Toat screamed, "Who's there? Open the door for me." In response, there was only a gurgling sound from the bucket. The murky water exploded, splashing black liquid onto the tiled floor. Suddenly, a hand emerged from the water, a pale, bony hand with long, sharp fingernails slowly gripping the rim of the bucket. Mrs. Toat froze, her entire body stiffening, goosebumps covering her skin. A face slowly rose, its long, black hair covering most of it, revealing only 2 vacant white eyes. From its mouth, which was torn open to the ears, came a deep, echoing cackle that filled the entire house with chilling laughter. The sound didn't come from the ghost's mouth, but directly into Mrs. Toat's head. Her hands went numb, her heart pounded erratically. Immediately, the ghost leaped out of the bucket, lunging forward, seizing her by the throat. Her body went limp. She thrashed, her hands clawing at the tiled floor, drawing blood. Her head was plunged into the icy water of the bucket. In that instant, she opened her eyes and saw that at the bottom of the bucket was not tiled floor, but an infinite, blood-red void. Thousands of pale hands wriggled, reaching up, gripping her. Around her, whispers echoed, children crying, men groaning, women wailing, all blending into a chilling symphony that drove her to madness. Her lungs, filled with water, felt like they would explode. She flailed her arms and legs in desperation, but the ghost's hair coiled tighter, pulling her deeper. In the murky water, she saw the faces of man, Huang, Kwang, and a disfigured, rotten-fleshed man, his eyes sunken. "Come with us, Mom, come down with us," she thrashed, before her eyes only bubbles of water bursting. The gurgling water filled the room as if an entire ocean was rising in the narrow plastic bucket. Mrs. Toat gasped for breath, her hands flailing in despair, unable to find anything to cling to. The stench of mud filled her nostrils, making her stomach churn. Suddenly, it released her. She flung her head out of the water, gasping for air, then coughed violently, her throat burning. Water and blood-stained hair dripped from the ghost, mixing with the blood from her mouth, staining the tiled floor. The eerie cackle echoed in the cramped space. The ghost sat hunched on the rim of the bucket, its bony arms supporting it. Water dripped from its hair, leaving black, putrid trails all over the room. "My house, you must die." It hissed, its voice sounding as if it came from a distant realm. Mrs. Toat, defiant, pressed her back against the wall, her eyes wide. "I didn't steal. This is my house. I built it with my own sweat." The ghost suddenly lunged, its face inches from hers. "Liar, blood for blood, you stole my house, you took my life." Immediately, blood began to seep from the four walls of the bathroom, dark red streaks flowing in trickles, dripping onto the tiled floor, staining the white tiles. Mrs. Toat panicked, wanting to run but unable to escape. The door was locked, the windows barred with iron. The piercing cackle echoed, blending with the sound of barefoot footsteps shuffling around her, each step seemingly imprinted on her mind. From the bathroom mirror, another face emerged, Mrs. Toat's own face, but with empty eyes, decaying teeth, and blood streaming from the corners of her mouth. The reflection recognized her, cackling wildly. "You're about to die." Mrs. Toat shrieked, lunging to smash the mirror. The mirror shattered, cutting her hands, blood mixing with water on the tiled floor. In the broken shards, the ghost woman's face still reflected, unchanging, even seeming to crawl out of the mirror, moving towards her. Time seemed to stand still. Outside, the clock chimed 12, marking the transition from the old day to the new. In the room, the ghost suddenly vanished. Only Mrs. Toat remained, trembling, leaning against the wall, cold sweat pouring from her, her breathing ragged. The silence lasted only a moment. From the toilet bowl, a gurgling sound echoed. The toilet lid suddenly opened. Bony white hands, pale and rotten, reached out, gripping the rim, trying to crawl out. Mrs. Toat shrieked, frantically kicking the toilet lid shut. But immediately, the entire room shook. The ceiling light flickered erratically, sometimes blindingly bright, sometimes completely dark. Each time the light flashed on, she saw shadowy figures standing before her. They had no faces, no eyes, just distorted, twisted limbs. Whispers and chilling laughter echoed from all directions. "Return the land, return the life, return the blood. The thief must die." Mrs. Toat clutched her ears, huddling on the floor. "No, I don't hear anything." But the more she denied, the louder the voices became, along with the cries of children. Then she felt something crawling under her skin. White maggots crawled out of wounds on her hands, wriggling over her chest, belly, and neck. She screamed, using her fingernails to tear at her flesh, blood gushing out in long streaks, the maggots writhing endlessly. In a hallucination, she saw herself standing before a house made of blood, her house turning into a river of red. All the faces were familiar: Man, Huang, Kwang, Little Thou. They all stared at her, their mouths twisted in insane smiles. "You heard us," she cried out. "No, I didn't. I only wanted my own house. I didn't steal yours." An icy hand gripped her shoulder. She turned. The female ghost stood right behind her, its eyes dripping blood, grinning, whispering in her ear, "You dared to steal my land and destroy my house?" Then it grabbed her hair, dragging her towards the bucket. Her weak struggles were futile as she was forcefully plunged into the water again. This time, the water was no longer clear but thick and bloody. Blood filled her nose and mouth, suffocating her. Her eyes bulged, threatening to pop out. In that instant, she felt the entire house collapse, roof tiles falling, the sound of shattering glass and wood all swallowed by an infinite sea of blood. The deafening screams transformed into an eternal, ceaseless, hellish symphony. Mrs. Toat was submerged deep in the murky red blood, her breath failing, her heart pounding as if about to burst. She thrashed, her fingernails clawing at the ghost's face. But instead of blood, worms wriggled out from the gashes, crawling directly into her mouth. She gagged and vomited, but the more she struggled, the deeper they burrowed into her throat. Her hands groped, clutched at the writhing mass in the ringing silence, making the room feel like a deep hole descending into hell. Her eyes lost focus, her breath completely stopped. The demon lifted her again, then slammed her onto the tiled floor. A sharp, piercing pain. Her breath hitched. Before her, the altar was now covered in money, and the faces of people with vacant white eyes stared at her, their mouths agape and silent. As they clung to the wall, they stared at her, hundreds of mouths mumbling, "Die, die for us." The lights flickered off. In the darkness, only the sound of dragging footsteps, clanking chains, and an invisible hand gripping her collar, her body going limp as she was pulled around the room. Mrs. Toat screamed until her voice was hoarse, crying, "Someone save me." "Someone help me." No one heard. The house sank into silence as if cut off from the world. In her panic and agony, Mrs. Toat fainted. When she opened her eyes, the scene before her froze her. Her entire family lay dead on the floor, covered in blood. Man was hanged, Kwang's skin was flayed, little Thao lay slumped, her head twisted 180 degrees, eyes staring vacantly. Mr. Toat lay face down in a pool of blood, his body mangled. She shrieked, hugging little Thao, but the child's tender body was stiff and cold. Her mouth, with its faint smile, whispered, "Grandma, you killed me." Thao's voice, a hoarse whisper, came from the child's small body. Mrs. Toat recoiled, bumping into Mr. Toat's corpse. His hair fell to the ground, but his body turned to look at her, his eyes vacant and bloody. "Because of you, our whole family died," she cried. Wild laughter, urgent footsteps echoed throughout the house. Each sound was like a dagger tearing at her sanity. She clutched her face, covering her ears, muttering, "No, it's not true, it's not true." The ghost's figure rose from the pile of corpses, its long hair covering the blood-stained floor. It shrieked, grabbing her hand, pulling her back to the water bucket again. Every time Mrs. Toat was about to drown, it would pull her up, allowing her to breathe, then plunge her down again. "Now your time is up." This went on all night, only terrifying plunges into the water. The sound echoed, water bubbling, chains clanking, children screaming, cries mixing into the wails of hundreds of souls. Images of blood and corpses, twisted faces, appeared one after another before Mrs. Toat's eyes. Until the terror reached its peak, the bathroom door suddenly opened. No ghost, no blood, only Mrs. Toat lying huddled on the soaking wet floor, her whole body trembling, her eyes blank and vacant. The next morning, neighbors heard faint groans and weak knocks on the door. When they forced the door open, they found Mrs. Toat sitting in the bathroom, her hair disheveled, clothes soaked with water and blood. She didn't recognize anyone, only mumbled about ghosts and spirits, about blood and death. She trembled, pointing at the wall, but the wall was pristine white, without a single blood stain. In the suffocating hospital room, Mr. Toat sat by Kwang's bed. His son lay motionless, his eyes lifeless. The heart monitor showed a weak, erratic pulse, but a fire burned in Mr. Toat's gut. He fed Kwang 2 spoonfuls of porridge when his phone rang. Mrs. Toat had gone insane. Mr. Toat froze, the white receiver slipping from his hand, shattering. He grabbed the phone tightly. What happened to her? She was screaming and wailing all night in the house. This morning, we found her huddled in the bathroom, soaking wet, mumbling about ghosts and spirits. She doesn't recognize anyone. A wave of panic washed over Mr. Toat. He staggered, collapsing onto the hospital floor. That house, I poured all my wealth into building it, a home for ghosts to dwell in, to torment and destroy my family," he growled, his eyes bloodshot. "No, it can't be like this. I must find Master Mao. Only he can save us." Then, without a word, leaving his son lying there, he grabbed his old, tattered coat and rushed out of the hospital. On the way, he called Man, asking his son to take his mother to the hospital while he went to find Master Mao. Mr. Toat painstakingly crossed the river, searching for the house with the tilted roof and bamboo grove, where people said Master Mao lived in seclusion. It was late afternoon, turning dark. A cold wind rustled through the banana leaves in the field, making him shiver. He trembled as he knocked on the door. Inside, silence for a long time. Finally, the door opened slightly, revealing the face of a gaunt woman. She looked him up and down, her face stern. "You still dare to come here, Mr. Toat?" Mr. Toat, humbled, clasped his hands. "Madam, please let me see Master Mao. My family is in great trouble. My wife is insane, my son is bedridden. Please, I will kneel if I have to." He spoke as he knelt, tears streaming down. The woman remained unmoved, spitting on the ground. "Your family's blessings are as thin as a blade of grass. You destroyed the geomantic lines, seized another's land, and had the audacity to defy evil spirits. Master Mao already said no one could save you, and you almost lost your life just by getting involved with his house. Please leave. Don't bring your bad luck here." Mr. Toat trembled, trying to plead. "The master knows I was wrong, but please think of human lives. If the master doesn't save us, my whole family will die." "Then die. Greedy people like you deserve to be tormented by ghosts your whole life." Then the woman grabbed the broom in the corner, holding it menacingly. "Now, don't make me sweep your ill fortune out of my yard." As she spoke, she lunged, the broom swishing violently at his legs, sweeping forcefully downwards, sweeping with all her might. "Sweep out all the ill fortune from his house. Let the ghosts not come near here." Mr. Toat stumbled, dodging and retreating as she relentlessly swept his back and knees without mercy. "Land thief, get out. Don't dirty other people's homes." Mr. Toat knelt by the roadside, his heart aching as if cut by a knife. He wanted to cry, to scream, but the sounds were trapped in his throat. The houses were all tightly shut. He knew he had nowhere left to turn. The afternoon wind howled, carrying the putrid smell from the river. He dragged his feet, stumbling in the setting sun. The entire land seemed to turn its back on him. Only an old, lonely man remained, carrying a despair that offered no escape.